Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing fine today.
Happy birthday, sweetie.
Oh, thank you. You know what today is?
1 year older?
And deeper in debt. Thank you, everybody, for the birthday cards. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, so it was very sweet.
Really thoughtful of those in this XJW community. So we'd like to welcome everybody to the insanity that is Watchtower.
Oh my goodness. And I want to thank the person that sent these to me, JW Phantom. I appreciate you getting me this talk. It's like, my goodness. And I also want to warn you parents that if you have small children, listening to it, it's up to you, but this talk is pretty bad. It's pretty graphic, and that's, the point we want to make in this.
Yeah, it's a very graphic talk in nature, but what we want to do is we want to contrast the difference that dwells in the mind of a current active Jehovah's Witness. So we're going to start with this first news report.
We want to take you now to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Officials are releasing a highly anticipated grand jury report. It actually details alleged abuse by hundreds of Catholic priests right across the state.
Now, we've all heard, these news reports about the abuse within the Catholic Church.
And in fact, this particular thing has actually spilled over into our home state, New Mexico, because up around Santa Fe, they've sent a dozen or so of these child-abusing priests here to get rehabilitated.
Yeah.
And it's really upsetting a lot of people here in New Mexico because we weren't warned.
They didn't even know in Jemez Springs that all of these Catholic priests were being sent to this retreat, this clinic that rehabilitates, the pedophiles and I mean, many in this state are just horrified that they weren't told that's what was going on in this state.
Yeah, exactly. But in the mind of a Jehovah's Witness, when they see a news report like this, they will actually validate and really authenticate that this is real news. So let's contrast that with another news report.
New tonight, an 8 on Your Side exclusive investigation into how certain congregations of Jehovah's Witness handle accusations of child sex abuse.
Well, last month we told you York Area Regional Police are investigating whether clergy broke mandated reporting laws in a case in Red Lion.
Now another woman's come forward with disturbing claims and is taking legal action against the Yorkana congregation.
WGAL News 8's Becca Hendrickson has been investigating this story for months.
Sarah Brooks is a welder who used to try to burn off her own skin. She says this was the only way she could take away the pain.
That worked, actually. It did relieve my stress immediately. So I kept doing it. I used curling irons, lighters, anything, candles, anything that was close by.
Often at this vanity, which she now uses for her art.
I can't believe I still have it. It's made a lot of moves with me.
A timeline of her years in court, reliving her sexual abuse as a teenager.
I thought it was my fault.
Why?
Because I told. I shouldn't have told. Look at the mess it made.
Two faces Brooks has tried to burn from her memory, but can't forget. Joshua Caldwell and Jennifer McVeigh.
Stand right there.
Caldwell was in court in April trying to get the sex offender restrictions lifted off his parole. A judge denied him. Caldwell declined to comment for our camera. Both he and McVeigh pleaded guilty in 2014 to child sex abuse. An affidavit shows Brooks first met them at the Yorkana Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witness.
And we've even talked to some who have JW families, some who are fully awake but still going, and they will tell you that when Jehovah's Witnesses hear a report about the abuse problem in their organization, well, that's media-driven lies.
And that's the nonsense that dwells in the mind of a Jehovah's Witnesses. They'll authenticate the news report as long as it's pointed towards another religious organization, but when the finger's being pointed back at them, oh no, that's fake news, that's media-driven lies, and they will do everything they can to make them feel better about their own organization when it comes to this sexual child abuse. But what we have here, Jehovah's Witnesses, is a local needs talk that's right in one of your own congregations.
Well, I find it interesting that if this talk was given by anybody else, they would not allow their children to listen to it. They would be horrified of what was being said and would view it as pornographic, too graphic for children to, listen to. But yet, because it's said in a Kingdom Hall, they will sit there and listen to this.
Well, yeah, and even though descriptive terms are used that really belongs in the adult world, that Jehovah Witness with that 7, 6, 5, 10-year-old child will just sit there and say, oh, doesn't Jehovah just love us? Can't you feel that love oozing from the faithful and discreet slave? But the sad reality is, Jehovah's Witnesses, is that you will do everything in your power to disassociate yourself from the news media driven lies, when they're talking about the Watchtown Bible Tract Society having a severe child abuse, pedophilia problem, but yet how are you going to react when you hear a local needs talk that's extremely graphic? How are you going to react? How do you make that work out in your own mind?
Well, just for example, today, which is August 26th, they are doing...
It's my birthday and you're going to look at the calendar?
Shut up. Today there's a protest going on in Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, here in the United States, of many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, many who are abuse survivors. And the reason they're doing this is because in Pennsylvania, it isn't just the Catholic Church. There has been many, many child abuse reports being reported in Pennsylvania. So it isn't just the Catholic Church. But how many Jehovah's Witnesses are going to say, oh, wow, we have an abuse problem too? No, they won't.
They're going to disconnect themselves from the issue, even to the point that when you hear something inside your own Kingdom Hall, you're going to say, oh, what a loving provision.
Yeah. Now, I do want to mention, I want to thank Joel, the Unwitness, for giving us a call and giving us a heads up.
Thank you.
That a link to an article to the Pennsylvania Inquirer about the protest made it to the Drudge Report.
Yeah.
So you can go to drudgereport.com and then do a search for Jehovah's Witnesses. And as of last night, it was on the front page, homepage, down on the bottom right-hand corner. And then there's a link to that article about the protest. So, I mean, that's a big thing.
We'll probably put a link in below.
Yeah, I will put a link down below to the actual article that was in the Drudge Report.
So, I guess since this is the local needs talk, it becomes apparent that you Jehovah's Witnesses have a sexual immorality problem in your Kingdom Halls. And before we get into this, I can recall an instance up in our Wisconsin congregation where a young couple got married, and after a short amount of time, they started having parties in their homes with other young, non-married couples, and guess what they were teaching them to do? Masturbate.
It was a big scandal in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and we've been away from that congregation for about 10 years now. So 10 years later, you're going to have a local needs talk that really is about the same thing.
And this is a local needs talk in Texas.
Yeah.
So it's all over. It's all over.
You Jehovah's Witnesses, you need to stop brainwashing yourselves into thinking that your organization is morally clean and upright, because it is not.
Now, before we play this first clip, I just want to say, you parents, imagine yourself sitting in a Kingdom Hall and you're looking around at all of, the older couples, all the older people, families, and you see 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, maybe even teenagers sitting in the audience listening to this. Just imagine that. Maybe you're a parent that has small children. How would you feel them listening to something like this?
Well, if you're a member of another religious organization, another church, even a small community church, would you allow your children to listen to a talk that you're about to hear?
Yeah.
Probably not. You wouldn't allow it. But see, this is the problem with the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, is that they do give talks like this in their kingdom halls, and the current Jehovah's Witness doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to say, no, I don't want my child hearing this, and get up and walk out. They won't do that.
And the elders won't give a warning either and say, you know, look, we're about to do a graphic
Very
talk,
adult-related talk.
very frank adult talk on sexual immorality with details, you know, so you might, you know, consider getting your small children out of here. But they won't do that.
No, they won't do that. And the other problem that Watchtower faces is the things that they're trying to keep secret inside their kingdom halls get leaked to the XJWs who do videos and make them public. This is the noose around your neck, Watchtower, because you're too stupid to think ahead of what the repercussions are going to be in a local needs like this, because all of us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses know that when a local needs talk is given, these problems exist inside the Kingdom Hall, just like when we was in Wisconsin several years ago. The local talk, the needs of the circuit, was bestiality. They don't give those talks if these things are not going on. They give these talks when these problems exist. And the disconnect is, oh, wasn't that a loving talk by Jehovah's faithful and discreet slave? They really care for us. They won't stop and say, wait a minute, our brothers and sisters are committing bestiality. We have young couples teaching younger ones how to masturbate, and then you have these talks.
Well, the thing is I remember just not too long ago, they were telling everybody, do not put these talks on social media. Do not make them public, because the apostates will use them against us. And obviously the elders aren't listening to the direction from, you know, headquarters, the governing body, because many kingdom halls are doing live streaming and many are on YouTube.
Yeah.
So obviously they're not listening to, you know, oh, but this is to enlighten the world and get the truth out to the world and to help the brothers and sisters, you know, who are stuck at home and can't make it to meetings. You're not following the direction of the governing body. So thank you for, you know, leaking, you know, putting all of this stuff on YouTube and the podcasts and live streaming and social media. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it.
Okay, our first clip.
Yes.
So for our local needs this week, we encourage you to look in as two brothers discuss the needs of the Preston Park congregation with this theme in mind: how can I avoid toying with immorality?
So George, I know if you're the same as me, we really appreciate the recent articles and the broadcasts that we've been getting from the Faithful and Discreet Slave, and especially the emphasis that they've been putting on upholding Jehovah God's high moral standards. There's no question, really, that when we talk about sexual relations, that these are limited to those who are married. Yeah. And so we know, though, that the world's standards continue to decline. And so the question is, could the world's way of thinking have maybe seeped in to the Preston Park congregation? What do you think is the cause of the problem?
Well, you know, John, I've been giving it a lot of thought. And, you know, I think really the problem is that too many are toying with sexual immorality. Now, what do I mean by toying? Well, toying is not pornea, because pornea is immorality. No, toying with sexual immorality means engaging in activities that can lead to pornea. In other words, toying with sexual immorality comes before pornea. Toying with it puts you on a slippery slope, a road that's very dangerous. And once you start down that path, it's very difficult to stop. You know, but a surprising number don't understand what pornea is. A lot think that it's just a Greek word for fornication or adultery. Mm-hmm. but it's really much more than that. Pornea involves the immoral use of the genitals in a lewd way. Now, what do I mean by lewd? Lewd means doing something with the intent of getting a sexual arousal, causing it. So, pornea includes oral sex, it includes anal sex, it includes the manipulation of the genitals between two people who are not married to each other. Pornea does not require skin-to-skin contact. So rubbing on someone's genitals through their clothes, that's not toying. Take a look in the rear view. Toying is behind. You've passed it. It does not require penetration, and it even doesn't require that either reach climax. So toying with sexual immorality is very serious. It's not something to be taken lightly.
Now, we're going to put the link down below to the entire talk so you can listen to it in full.
Yes, because we're just going to pick out some things that we found quite
disturbing?
Interesting. Yeah, and disturbing. Well, as you could see, it was very graphic in nature. If you have a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, you might just find yourself on the way home, Mommy, Daddy, what does this mean? What is that? And it gets a little worse as it goes on.
Either that or kids nowadays, since they have their own phones and can Google it, they're going to Google this information. And do you really want them doing that?
Well, not only that, they'll probably get to see pictures of it.
Oh, yeah.
See, and that's the problem that you're creating for your own people, Watchtower. This is how stupid these people truly are. They think they're helping, but it's an exercise in futility. But the thing that I found interesting is not only are they pretty much mirroring the Welcome to Bethel talk and masturbation that we all heard several months ago, because when you listen to it, you can hear, the similarities between the two talks. But I also found it very telling that they used the phrase, too many in their local congregation. Too many? So this would alert somebody to the idea that they have a horrific sexual immorality problem. And if you're a non-Jehovah's Witness, keep in mind, these same people are knocking on your door Saturday morning trying to convert you to their faith. Yeah. These immoral people are trying to convert you to their own brand of faith. And yet they're having talks like this. If you're a current Jehovah's Witness in this congregation, what even gives you the right at this point to go from door to door? You don't have that right.
Yeah, telling people how to live.
Yeah.
And then saying we're a morally clean people, denying that you have a child abuse problem. Do you see the problem, the conundrum you have? Because to the world, you look like a bunch of hypocrites.
Well, and having been a Jehovah's Witness for 42 years of my life and heard a number of these talks, I've got to ask Jehovah's Witnesses, where now is your freeness for speech? You don't have it. When the news media is pointing the fingers at you along with the Catholic Church and other religious institutions, where's your freeness of speech to talk about the good news of the kingdom? You don't have it no longer.
They have a serious problem is what they've got.
It's what they've got.
And then they add to it by live streaming their meetings to where we all can get the talks.
Yeah.
So they just keep adding to the problem.
That's right. All right, next clip.
And there's emotional damage that comes from toying with sexual immorality. It scars your conscience. It makes it impossible for you to show genuine love because of that damage to your conscience. And there's emotional damage that has happened as well, especially more acute for women. People who do that are left feeling empty. They have feelings of guilt, anxiety, embarrassment. And women feel it much more intensely than men. So it is far from just simple fun.
Yeah, that's a good point, George. And, when we talk about the relationship damage, you talked about the spiritual damage, but the two people that are maybe courting or maybe even thinking about getting engaged or whatever, they actually damage their relationship with themselves.
Oh, my God. this is so demeaning. I mean, you can't have genuine love if you are involved with a little bit of, petting and,
well, they actually take it to the, to the extreme. But what I find so interesting is that they put more of the emotional wreckness, how it wrecks the emotions of a woman more than it does a man. These idiots speak as if they're experts on these things.
Yeah, so where are the studies, that prove this, about guilt and stuff? To be honest, men can feel just as guilty as women. And this is a very misogynistic, sexist comment.
Yes,
because, newsflash, guys, women can initiate, this, pre-pornea stuff too.
Well, here in the local news in the United States, we've got a case going on where an actress and an actor, she was 34 years old or something like that, and he was 17. She seduced him, and now he's suing her. So, I mean, come on, Watchtower, Jehovah's Witnesses, your disconnect is so blatant, it's pathetic. You're not even thinking in modern day terms. Let me give you something that's a modern day term today, Jehovah's Witnesses. Women don't need men no more. Women can very well function in today's society without the man holding their hand every step of the way. That's a fact, and that even includes sexual matters.
Yeah, women have careers, they're working, they're supporting themselves.
They can buy homes by themselves, vehicles by themselves.
Yeah, so this archaic, misogynistic, sexist, attitude just don't cut it anymore in this society, because he's right. Women don't need men.
Well, here's a factoid. How many single ex-Jehovah's Witnesses have we talked with in the past 5 years plus and said, I just can't find a woman. I really want to get settled down, but I just can't find somebody, because you're living in the old archaic way of life, thinking that a woman needs to be subservient to you to make your life happy and your life fulfilling. That's bullshit in these modern day terms.
Exactly. And for an example, I don't want to give anything away, but we're going to get into it's always the woman's fault.
Mm-hmm.
And look to the very beginning, and yeah, the Bible, Eve's fault. Look at the woman you gave me.
Yeah.
Dinah.
Dinah. That was
it was her fault
because she went to the other nations.
Yeah, and I'll give you a good example. Our daughter Shyla just interpreted a safety video for a shop, which had absolutely nothing to do with religion or, sexual inappropriateness or anything like that. And it was talking about the safety in a shop. And it says, women do not wear dresses. And, she's interpreting this and she's like, well, maybe, because they could get caught in the machinery or something.
Right.
Well, then the idiots made this following statement, because it could distract the men and they could cut their thumbs off and get hurt. It's like, really? Not only is this demeaning to women that what you wear is your fault for distracting the men and them hurting themselves, but this is actually demeaning to men. If the men are so stupid that they're distracted, from a woman wearing a dress and cut themselves, hurt themselves, it's your own damn fault.
Well, and that's the point. If you're a man working around power equipment that you could easily, lose a thumb, finger, wrist, an arm, whatever, then you've got to ask yourself, how much are you paying attention to your job at hand? Why are you so easily distracted with a woman wearing a dress when you can lose a digit? That's your fault, guys. That's not the woman's fault. That's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as getting back to this talk, it takes two. It takes two. Either one could say no at any time.
Exactly.
Now, there again, if the woman, pushes someone away and says no, then the other person needs to respect
you
that.
need to respect those boundaries. And,
yeah.
Well, there again, it just shows that these guys are experts in this religious sexual philosophy, and they're far from it. They're not even up to date with things.
You know what they're experts at?
Telling lies.
Manufactured ignorance and stupidity.
That's what it is. You know, that's a term we haven't used for a long time, huh? Manufactured ignorance, yeah.
Yeah, and stupidity. So we've got another clip, guys.
But if we're taking those liberties before marriage, satisfying our own gratification, we're actually making this marriage get off to a very bad start. You know, when passionate kissing and touching begin, really communication, which is very essential to two people who are past the bloom of youth, thinking about getting married, it cuts off the communication, because instead of actually talking about serious things that are going to lead to a happy marriage, goals, aspirations, spiritual things, this physical contact makes all that get thrown out of the window. And so at the point of when a marriage is actually realized, then some actually find themselves frustrated because they didn't really have the communication that they needed, because they substituted with toying with immorality.
Now, from someone, two people who have been married for 39 years, looking back, you do need a little bit of passionate kissing and touching, you know, without going, you know, all the way. But I mean, you still need that to see if, well, I'm going to be blunt here. If you excite one another, you know, if there's no chemistry, how can you tell if...
Well, is that why a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses marriages fail? Because we all know, statistically speaking, that, you know, the divorce rate among Jehovah's Witnesses is just as high as it is among non-Jehovah's Witnesses, if not even higher. But what a huge assumption these idiots make, thinking that, you know, all this courting and dating is all about passion and kissing, and by the time you do reach, you know, the talking point of marriage, you know, all of this serious talk is just thrown out the window. You guys are idiots, because even when Kim and I were dating, we talked about at what point we want to start a family. She was younger, I was younger. We didn't want to even contemplate, we talked about this, contemplate having children until we were in our 20s, till we had stabilized jobs, until we had a house, and that we could provide for a child or two. And these were things that we talked about while we were dating. So this is a huge bullshit assumption that they're throwing out here. And it's not going to hold water anywhere, because at some point you're going to have to be making wedding plans. You're going to have to be looking for a home or for an apartment to rent and things like this. So, I mean, come on, guys. This is just your ordinary, everyday Watchtower, run-of-the-mill bullshit. This is really nothing more than just a filler, is all this is.
Well, they're making it sound like people can't control themselves and they're just going to be making out all the time and not discuss these things, which is so stupid. Because, you know, and you need that time alone. You know, we had to have a chaperone all the time, which was usually his little brother and my little sister.
Yeah.
And they fought the whole time, you know, and so they're actually going to mention chaperones here. We're going to get into that.
Like I said, guys,
this is stupid.
It's just a filler. These guys are projecting themselves as if they're experts and that they know every step of the way of what should be happening, what's not happening, and it's just it's a huge assumption on their part that dating and courting couples among Jehovah's Witnesses who are getting to the point of passion are throwing out all of the other things revolving around two people making a life together, like some of the serious talking, as you know, as mentioned.
Now, from experience, I can say that having these chaperones, is totally useless. Because, because they were fighting all the time and stuff, we didn't have time to talk. We couldn't talk because they were making such a fuss all the time and distracting and all of us. So we couldn't talk. So it isn't just, making out that prevents, young couples from talking serious things. It can be your damn chaperones too.
Well, and at the same point is if you do have a chaperone and you do start talking about some things that maybe the chaperone might feel guilty about or maybe feel that it's inappropriate for a dating couple to be talking about, well, guess what? That damn chaperone's got to run to the elders, and then you're in trouble all over again.
Been there, done that.
For following the frickin' rules.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is just so stupid. And they're using the same rules and they're saying the same thing they did 39 years ago.
Yeah, it's how archaic this organization is.
Yeah. All right. Gotta go to the next clip while we calm down here.
But George, how can we assist the congregation to avoid toying with immorality?
Well, we need to get through to them the importance of setting boundaries. Jehovah's people, they're God-fearing. They don't really intend to engage in activities that they know Jehovah disapproves. But boundaries are there for their own protection. I've come to learn that there's 3 things that must be present for sexual immorality to occur.
Mm-hmm. I think I've heard you say this before.
Time, place, and desire.
Right.
TPD. You gotta, if both have the time and the place and the desire, it will happen. It's not that it might happen. It absolutely will happen.
Good Lord, here's another huge assumption.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
Okay, let's just say if you are engaged, the desire's already there. If you don't have desire and you're engaged, something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
So the desire's there no matter what.
Well, but see, now, keep in mind, this is a local needs talk. So you've got Jehovah's Witnesses in this congregation doing exactly what they're pointing to.
Yeah.
This is a problem among them.
But I mean, this is so stupid to just automatically assume that if you have the time and place and you're alone, that it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Archaic. Very archaic.
We had the time and opportunity.
And the desire, but guess what?
We didn't.
Didn't happen.
Yeah. So just to automatically think, and it goes along with, this is why they feel that two members of the opposite sex can't go out and service alone to one another and can't be anywhere alone, and you can't even drive somewhere alone in the car because you're just gonna jump on each other and commit immorality.
But see, there again, this is just a small portion of a much, much, much larger issue among Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's the child sexual abuse.
Yeah, because it goes along with that.
Yes, it does. Absolutely does.
It also goes along with that, because it's included in there.
Yes, it is.
Basically. Next clip.
So you've got to take one of them away, either the time or the place. The desire is sometimes hard to take away, but if you can take away one of them, well, then it won't happen. We have a really good example of that in the Song of Solomon, second chapter, verses 10 through 15, with the Shulamite maiden.
Right, Shulamite maiden.
Yeah, she wanted to go. Her shepherd boy wanted to go for a walk. Mm-hmm. Now, what's wrong with that? Just walk, enjoying nature. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But what happened? Her brother said no. They had her guard the vineyard from the foxes. Why? It was to put a boundary there. It was to protect her from doing something that she really didn't want to do in the first place. So it's a real good lesson for us.
This kind of stuff just irks me to no end. Here's some more sexist, and to use the Shulamite maiden. First of all, this is thousands of years ago.
If it's even real.
And this is the ancient, Middle East mentality that still exists today, might I add. Because I was just watching a YouTube video and they were talking to Muslim men. And it was on Facebook. And they were talking, what if your little sister decided to get a job and move to another town? And some would even say, we would kill her.
They wouldn't allow it.
Literally. Because the men feel they are the men of the family and they have to protect the women. even to the point to where they say what the women can do in the family. And here is a perfect example, you know, and what a stupid example to use that is so archaic and so sexist that their little sister can't even go for a walk in the vineyard with her, you know, fiance. Oh my God.
Well, it goes down to here again, another huge assumption. See, they're assuming that her desire is to fornicate. See, that's another huge assumption. And I find it interesting that they're talking about this whole passionate thing, and they're making all these assumptions. I have a challenge for any current Jehovah's Witness out there who's up to the task. You go back, you read the Song of Solomon, and you show me one scripture that shows that this couple sat down and made plans for the future. You don't see one scripture where they went looking at apartments or looking at little huts or whatever it is that they were going to be looking for a place to live at that time. You don't see them talking about planning a family. No, that whole Song of Solomon is nothing about human lust, human desire, and like Kim mentioned, the family putting a stop to it and making sure that nothing happens.
Oh, I want to climb your tree and squeeze your coconuts.
Yeah, squeeze
Something
your fruits.
like that.
Yeah, it's like, my God, it just...
What do you think it's talking about?
These guys are just so idiotic.
Well, they're very sexist.
Very, very
sexist, very misogynistic.
And it's presented from one side, because when we get to the end of this, we're going to show you again how they view it's always the woman's fault.
Yeah. Oh, these guys, you know, get into the 21st century, for crying out loud.
See, and here again, we're not trying to advocate immorality in any of this,
that's
because
not what we're doing.
Outside of the whole God thing, the guilty conscience, there are consequences. And it may very well be a guilty conscience, but the way these guys are presenting it is from an old, archaic perspective. You know, there are sexually transmitted diseases today that could happen in these situations. So there are consequences.
Pregnancies?
Pregnancies, yes. So we're not trying to advocate, go out and do all of this stuff in opposition to Watchtower. Again, there are consequences. And if you're going to be doing this stuff, then you need to man up, woman up, to what the consequences could be.
And use protection.
Yeah,
but what
exactly.
we are saying is this is the individual's choice. This is not a religion to dictate and
exactly,
you know, tell people what they can and cannot do. And we're also going to get into that, you know, with the whole chaperone and elders hypocrisy here in just a minute. So,
all right, let's move on.
The next one.
But you know, it is true that there are certain types of affection that are a precursor to sexual intercourse. There are certain types of kissing that the only reason why you would kiss in that way is you're about to have sex. So the thought is, even if you're courting or engaged to be married, if you're engaging in an affection that is leading to sexual arousal and you are not licensed to engage in sex, then it's improper.
Yeah, it's improper.
And so really, we have to have that self-control.
A license to engage in sex? Do you hear now what they just said? A license to engage in sex. In other words, you need the state's approval.
Yeah. Now, let me explain something of how that works here in the United States that even Jehovah's Witnesses aren't aware.
In fact, I think we did a video on this some time ago.
We mentioned it.
It bears repeating.
Yeah. So if you guys have already heard this, go get coffee, whatever, you know. This is for new ones and for Jehovah's Witnesses who may be listening to this. All right. When a JW couple gets married and they follow all the rules and do everything just right, and they go through the wedding, you go through your reception, and then you sign that license, and then you all go off on your honeymoon, and that night you engage in what you think is legal sex.
Licensed sex.
Licensed sex. No. That's not true. Because that license is not a legal document until it is stamped by the county clerk's office and filed in their books with the county clerk government.
Following Monday.
Yeah, usually Monday, Tuesday, the next week is when you get that license in. Some send it in, some... Until you get that stamped and it returned to you by the county clerk for a license, it is not a legal marriage document.
See, and that's why you have the terminology annulment.
Yeah.
Because it never got filed. Otherwise, when it gets filed, then it's called a divorce.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of the playing on of words, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
But these guys make it sound like they're experts in the field.
Licensed to do so. So then we get into the difference, okay? The government, you are now a legal corporation and get that legal document, or are you really married in God's eyes?
Right.
So which is it?
Which is it? Think
So
about it,
for these guys to say a license to do so, it's just a matter of semantics.
Yep, that's all it is. It is. Here again,
Just
you've
little
got,
details.
You've got monkeys at the typewriters.
Exactly. Next clip.
But how do we stay on this course of avoiding toying with sexual immorality?
Well, it's important that we get Jehovah's viewpoint. They look at things the way Jehovah does. You know, a real good scriptural principle to keep in mind is Psalms 97:10, which says, "Oh, you who love Jehovah, hate what is bad." See, so not only do we love what's good and what's pure and what's right, we have to actually hate what's bad, because Jehovah hates it.
Yes.
We need to stay away from it, avoid it like it was poison, even if it tastes sweet.
Now, this is what I find excessively hypocritical, because these guys will sit down and do a local needs talk like this and get very graphic and then say, oh, and then they'll use the scripture, say, oh, you must hate what Jehovah hates. And what they're doing is they're using all of these scriptures, all of these, their seeming words of wisdom, and applying it specifically to couples that are dating, maybe engaged and everything like that. But yet you will never, ever hear a talk of this nature regarding child sexual abuse. They'll never do it.
Yeah.
Because that right there is the bullet to the Watchtower brain that would wake everybody up.
Now, we've heard little clips of them mentioning child abuse in past talks, but they won't sit down and get this graphic and admit that there's a problem in their congregations.
You'll never hear a local
and
news
use
talk.
Scriptures and say you have to hate this. No, you will never hear that.
Exactly. And this is the hypocrisy that dwells in the mind of Jehovah's Witnesses. They'll sit and put together a talk like this for local needs, but if you've got an elder abusing a male or a female, you'll never hear the graphic details like you're hearing right here.
Of what you should avoid.
Of what you should avoid. You'll never hear the elder giving a talk like this say, well, you know, brother so-and-so, you know, it's been observed that many of our elders are sexually abusing little boys. We have pedophiles within this congregation. We need to avoid them because you need to hate what Jehovah hates. We must be a clean people. You'll never hear that. And this is their hypocrisy right here.
Well, maybe that's what they need. They need these local needs talk about child abuse. Any congregation that has a child abuse problem, the elders really need to do local needs and talking about it so that the congregation is alerted. See, you don't have to mention names or make an announcement. Just do a local needs of a child abuse problem, and that will alert the congregation.
But see, like I said, that's the bullet to Watchtower's head, because they've already got the Jehovah Witness trained in what to say. Oh, those are media-driven lies. We don't have a child sexual abuse problem in our organization. Oh, no. We don't have that. But, you know, what becomes natural between a man and a woman that's dating, yeah, you do have those problems, and you will give talks addressing those problems. But you will not address the child sexual abuse problem as a local needs talk.
Well, last year for the convention, they did have a small talk about the child abuse problem, and, you know, to even watch your kids when they go to the bathroom or in the back rooms or something.
But it's not enough.
But this really didn't alert, you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, many didn't. It didn't even faze them. Oh, well, we've got a child abuse problem in our organization. No, that's not how they viewed it, because it was a talk given worldwide at the convention.
Yeah, speaking
so see,
in
that's
general
the
terms.
difference. Yeah,
Right.
it was a general terms, and oh, we need to protect our children. Oh, wasn't that a loving talk? You know, protecting our children.
Well,
but
yeah.
it didn't dawn on them. Oh, wait, we got a problem in our organization.
Right, because at the convention level, every Jehovah's Witness knows that there are worldly people coming in. Every Jehovah's Witness knows that. So it's wisdom to say, well, brothers and sisters, make sure when your young ones go to the bathroom, you go with them, because you wouldn't want anything bad to happen. But when the Jehovah's Witness has the mind that there's non-Jehovah's Witnesses in their conventions with them, now they become alert to the possible dangers. But they're still not making the connection that these dangers are coming from within their own congregation.
In my personal opinion, that's what they need to do, is bring it down to a local congregation level and give these local needs talks.
And be pointed with
all
them.
congregations, and, you know, be just as, you know, forthright, I think is the word, as they are in this one.
Exactly.
You know, though, two people who are past the bloom of youth and courting each other with the intent to get married, they need to spend time with each other. Yeah. I mean, that's just part of what Jehovah designed. So the question is, what types of things are going to make sure that our thought process during this time together is positive? Our thoughts and our actions remain positive. Well, there are many different suggestions that we get from the Faithful and Discreet Slave. There's many things that we can do. Two people who want to be together, as long as they have the proper environment and the proper chaperones, they can do different things like games and enjoy their company. Sports is another thing that people kind of engage in, and they're around each other. But not only that, but just good conversation in a proper environment.
And did you hear the qualifier? Past the bloom of youth. There's the qualifier. Proper environment. There's the qualifier.
Well, here we go with the chaperones. And for those of you who have been with us from the very beginning on our channel, you know our little story about Cousin Richard and his cousin Belinda. For those of you who are new to our channel, let me tell this story here real quick. Our daughter met someone who was a Jehovah's Witness. They met at a district convention, and they started talking and had a long-distance relationship because he was in Maine and she was here in New Mexico, and they decided to get married. Well, she was going to fly out there, help him pack up all his stuff, and move him out. You know, he was going to move out here, and they were going to be staying with us. You know, so they had chaperones. Proper chaperones.
We even have a little travel trailer or motorhome that James could stay in.
Yeah, so everything was planned and worked out.
But that wasn't good enough.
Now, an elder in our local congregation, Richard Sedlak, pitched a fit. Not only were they going to be on an airplane flying back to New Mexico alone. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Okay? Even if you stop in an airport, you're never alone. Yeah, they could have went in a bathroom and, you know, got frisky. But I trusted my kid.
That's right.
And guess what? She's over 18. I can't control what she does anyway. They were past the bloom of youth. But Richard pitched a fit. And then for James to live in the motorhome, oh, things could happen. Things could happen. Even though Shyla had her own room, we're sleeping, you know, our bedroom's right by the front door, And James would have been out in the motorhome. Oh no, can't have that. So Elder Richard made James come stay with him for those 2 weeks before the wedding. And so it cost a lot in gas because Mikey actually had to let James have the truck so that he could drive here during the day so they could make plans for weddings, or, you know, we could all go into the city to get stuff done and all of that. So it really hurt us.
It was actually a burden.
It was a burden to us. But we followed each and every one of his rules, and I say his rules to the letter, because we didn't want any reproach on Jehovah's name.
That's right.
Got the kids married, everything was fine. Cousin Richard, well, Elder Richard, he wasn't related at that time, Elder Richard starts dating his cousin, who happened to be living with us at the time, because she moved over here from Arizona and was living with us. They had a chaperone only twice.
One of them was me.
He went with them on a fishing trip where they went up north, and then I went on a hike with him. After that, no chaperones. Elder Richard sat right here in our living room and said, oh, chaperones at our age is ridiculous.
Those are his words.
Now, do these two elders make a qualifying, you know, remark of, oh, but once you get over, you know, 40, it's okay, you don't need a chaperone. No, they don't qualify it like that. They just say those dating, those courting. And when the elders showed up here about our apostasy, oh yeah, Elder Richard was one of them. And we brought this up to the other elder that was here with him and said, you know, look at the hypocrisy. He made us follow this chaperone rule for our kids to the letter, but yet him and Belinda are out till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning by themselves.
Steaming up the windows in the vehicle.
Her admission.
Eyewitness account.
Yeah. Or they would park and sit in her vehicle out here in our front yard to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and then wake us up, you know, when they came in and then sit here in the living room talking alone.
Yep.
So they had opportunity, they had desire. But do you think when we mentioned it to the other elders that Richard was removed or talked to or a local needs talk?
What was it?
Oh, no.
They had the time, they had the opportunity, and they had the desire. The hypocrisy doesn't end with this group of people.
She used to drive to his house, and they were in his house alone.
Yep.
So do you guys see the hypocrisy? And this really started waking us up back, and this was 2010.
Yeah.
2010, and this is
another part of our waking up process, the hypocrisy.
And when we mentioned it, you know, to our other JW family, they were horrified.
Yeah.
So can you see the hypocrisy, Watchtower, of how these elders are preaching to the congregation of how to behave while they're courting and dating, and they don't do this themselves?
Yep. Exactly.
Hypocrites.
Next clip.
Yes.
There's one other thing that I think is very important to remember is that Jehovah God in Hebrews, it mentions that he sees all things. There's nothing that's hidden that he doesn't know. There's nothing that we can hide from him. There's another good scripture in Galatians chapter 6 verses 7 and 8 that I think is worth reading. Galatians chapter 6 verse 7 and 8 says, "Do not be misled. God is not one to be mocked. For whatever a person is sowing, this he will also reap, because the one sowing with a view to the flesh will reap corruption from his flesh, but the one sowing with a view to the Spirit will reap everlasting life from the Spirit."
Yeah, I think these are all very good points. It's important that we try to get through to the congregation these things that are going to protect them from toying with sexual immorality, understanding that that's something that happens before immorality. So if you're not going to, if you can't finish, why start?
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of the principle that Adam was trying to get through to Eve when he said, don't touch that tree. Jehovah didn't say that, but Adam probably told Eve, don't touch it. Why are you going to touch it if you're not going to eat it? So same principle here. Why start something that you can't finish? We need to learn to trust Jehovah, put our confidence in him, that we're going to be happy if we do. He'll bless us now, and he'll bless us with everlasting life in the new world. Excellent. These are all good points. I really appreciate you helping with this, John.
George, we could have talked more than 15 minutes, but thank you very much for spending the time.
All right.
Isn't it interesting they use that scripture in Hebrews, and, Jehovah sees everything. You know what, guys? Jehovah also sees that you're not addressing the child sexual abuse problem that's plaguing your organization worldwide. He sees that you're trying to cover it up. He sees that too. But at the very end, did you catch it? They made it all Eve's problem. They blamed the women.
Yeah, they always blame Eve.
Don't touch that tree. I mean, why start anything you can't finish, Eve? So don't even look at the apple or the fruit or whatever the hell it was if you're not going to be able to finish eating it. They just blame the woman for all of these problems.
Well, it reminds me of, some of the abuse stories we have heard, and also the Australian Royal Commission, testimony, that there have actually been cases where these elders blame the child for seducing, the perpetrator.
Or dressing provocatively.
Yeah. And this is how sick, this organization is they have to blame the victims.
Yeah, they blame the victim.
And re-victimize them, or blame the woman, which is a very misogynistic, sexist thing. Did Eve twist Adam's arm and make him eat the fruit? I don't think so.
No, she didn't. See, and that's the thing, go back.
It's on him.
Yeah. When you look at in the beginning of that WGAL
news report,
the woman, Sarah, she actually thought it was her fault.
Yeah.
She actually thought it, because this is how this organization makes the victims feel. They make you feel that you're the one at fault for what the predator does.
See, and then when you listen to the entire, news clip, with her interview, she told. And so then the repercussions, she's the one, it breaks up families. They start shunning the one who tells.
Yeah.
The ones that report it to the police. They're the ones. They're re-victimizing. The victims speak out and they're re-victimized by, shunning and disassociation and disfellowshipping from all of the JW friends and family. This is deplorable.
These guys are sick. Well, years ago they used to read a scripture about being mentally diseased. Watchtower, you're the ones that are causing this mental disease in people.
Yeah.
You're the ones causing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of your sick, twisted view about life.
Yeah. And if any abuse survivors are out there, I want to tell you, it's not your fault. And if you decide whether to go, take this to the courts or not, that's your decision. Nobody should tell you what to do. But just know that this is not your fault. You were the victim.
That's right.
And so all our hearts, thoughts, and prayers go out to all of you abuse survivors. And, for talks like this, it just makes it easy for us, gives us so much material that we can, talk about this. So thank you, Phantom, so much, for alerting me to this talk and getting this talk to me, because I know it took time for you, to find it and get a hold of it.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. We appreciate it. And like I said, I'm going to put the link down below to the entire talk, and you guys can share it, use it, whatever. We need to get the word out on how disturbing these hypocrites are.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they are. They're hypocrites. They'll sit in their kingdom halls and give a talk such as this, but they will not accord the same type of talk or information regarding the child sexual abuse problem that they've been hiding for decades.
Yeah, and of course you're not going to get a public apology from Watchtower headquarters. You know, because then that would be them admitting that they have a problem, and they're not going to do that.
There again, that's the bullet to the head.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why all of us, you know, that's why these protests are so good, because you're letting everyone know. You know, go look at the London protests. There's so many videos on YouTube, and there was a lot of witnesses reading the signs, going up and talking to the victims.
Yep.
You know, and they see the articles about, and they say, yes, that was me. I was abused. So this is good. This is a good thing.
Okay.
So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and please share, you know, these videos around if you want.
Just as long as you don't out yourself, if you're a current JW, be careful. Social media, you will get outed if you're still trying to fade or something like that.
Be careful.
Very careful.
Yeah, and especially sharing talks like this. You're showing Jehovah's organization in a negative light.
Damn right we are, because it needs to have the light shown on it.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that makes us light workers?
I guess. Whatever you want to call it. Light bearers. Whatever.
So thank you, everybody, and we hope you have a wonderful week, and we love you, and God bless.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.